Kuro really went all out. I mean, that 4.5 anniversary stream for PGR was a banger. I'm so excited for the new Lucia frame. Finally, she won't get dunked on by literally everyone in the story. But it looks like I'm going to have to wait for an entire year. Yay. I mean, I can't wait for my wallet to be in danger because look at that Luna swimsuit skin. Hello? This is a must-have. Our queen only deserves the best. Oh, and I guess there's that other swimsuit skin for Hangying for you Hangying fans out there. Anyway, what's going on in Wuthering Waves? Oh yeah, it's the 1.1 patch, isn't it? So this new patch released a few days ago, giving us a new section of the map to explore, the continuation of the story, new echoes, new hologram, and most importantly, Jinshi. After going through this entire patch, which it's not a big patch, all things considered, I have to say, this seems to be a step in the right direction, and it appears that the path for Wuthering Waves is much clearer now. At the same time, there's something I cannot get out of my head when I look at this game through a holistic lens. So let's talk about my thoughts on 1.1. By the way, I will be talking about some spoilers here, so do the entire story and come back. It's like an hour and a half to complete. Anyway, let's get into it. So, let me just say, if this story was their opening gambit, I think the game would have been received better than it did before. Everything from the build-up leading to the journey towards Mount Firmament to the confrontation with Jue was done very well. What made this story such a stark contrast from what we got with the 1.0 story is how they took their time to explain the concepts of the world by laying things out piece by piece with methodical pacing, and really let these ideas sink in under a need-to-know basis rather than an info dump. Naturally, I'd expect to have the 1.1 story really wash away the feelings I had about the 1.0 story, but honestly, it's the opposite. What 1.1 really did was show me how bad 1.0 really is, and it's such a stain on my experience with the game that now I'm very adamant that they should really do something about the initial story of Wuthering Waves, because it's just not good. 1.0's story is an incoherent mess of a story that was all over the place leading up to a climax I felt they really did not deserve. However, here in 1.1, the new story brought so much character and identity to the world of Wuthering Waves, it was near perfect. Speaking of character, they really took their time to focus on the characters involved with the story to make them more compelling, going through their backstory and also their motivations. This is what we needed. Now, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say Echo. Let me just say, I despise tiny mascots for any game. It's the worst part of any game for me, and I really want to take my gun and pump bullets into every mascot ever created, especially Paimon. When I first saw the Echo mascot thing appear at the end of the 1.0 story, I let out the longest sigh in the universe. It didn't have to be there, but I guess here we are. The beginning of the story was the absolute worst for me, spending 15 minutes talking about what this mascot is and what we should name it. Worst 15 minutes of my life. Now, if you like Abby, more power to you. But for me, whenever I see Abby on the screen, I will always have this urge to shoot my monitor until Abby leaves the scene. That said, Abby's importance to the story shouldn't be ignored, as it does explain a little bit about the unique and talking echoes, which is interesting. Also, I don't know about you, but did anyone get some Digimon vibes from Abby? Anyway, what I will say is that Abby's voice acting is the best we've seen so far from the EN side. Yep, I gave the English dub one more chance to see if it'll be any good, and you know what? It's subpar. It's certainly better than what we got with 1.0, but really, it didn't hit its stride. Honestly, I tried to give them another chance in this patch, but now I'm going back to Japanese. I'll no longer miss out on Yui Ishikawa, but hey, if people start talking about how the EN dub is amazing, I'll come back. The journey to Mount Firmament was spectacular. The boat ride heading towards the island was fantastic and filled with a lot of tension. But what really impressed me was the moment where we passed through the time barrier thing. That was when I felt I discovered the true identity of Wuthering Waves. The way how time is so messed up in the world, where some parts are slowed down, some parts are sped up, or some parts are completely frozen, Kuro has always been good at setting up the things are not right here set pieces. I mean, it's pretty much the entirety of PGR. You see, my favorite region in Wuthering Waves in 1.0 was the Sea of Flame section. The world was clearly not normal, parts of the city was floating and destroyed, while the indoor sections were basically puzzles. And the tone and vibe of the area just oozes personality, and it was unique. And when we look at Mount Firmament, it's that, but better. The darker shadings that Kuro uses for the game is now used to its fullest potential, allowing the environment to have a deeper tone which is more characteristic in nature and separates itself from the competition with its unique flair. You may have recalled that Wuthering Waves received criticism for their use of heavier shadings, as if it's a bad thing. I think the issue wasn't that the heavier shadings itself was bad, I think it was simply underutilized. In Mount Firmament, the use of heavier colors shine as it showcases how they are an asset that lifts the aesthetics of the game. Then there's the environmental design. I've always been a firm believer of the concept of show don't tell, and when it comes to an open world game, it's where that concept should be seen in full force. When it comes to Mount Firmament's environmental design, the surroundings tell a story backed by mystery and wonder. The unknown structures strewn about the location, the ruins littered around the island, and the cave systems that has old civilization structures all give the environment that much needed element to tell a story without saying anything. Of course, we can't forget the dragon-shaped mountain that is the biggest landmark of the island. There's so much detail surrounding this small location, and that being said, this is just a great sign that Kuro has what it takes to bring this game to the next level. And let's talk about the town design in Mount Firmament. Every building has its own particular unique build, which feels less of a copy and pasted architecture, more like someone is playing Minecraft and building a house that they would like to have in their imagination. These buildings have their own finite details that, despite being a small deal, brings out so much character through the effort put into its design. They didn't have to add these details, but they did anyway. It really makes Jinzhou seem bland by comparison with its seemingly uniform design. And remember, this is just a small town in the game. Beyond that, I also want to point out that they have a small traversal mechanic, the jump pad, to make exploration fun, not to mention the time-based puzzles that Firmament has, which seem to add to the aesthetics of the area. Oh yeah, and we also have to talk about the music. In 1.0, the music was absolutely the weakest part of the game. In my last video, I mentioned that they should have Vanguard Sound Studio work on the music, and I'm still not going to back down on that. Though, I will say that the music in Mount Firmament is way better than what we got in the 1.0 sections. The music here is now more music than ambience, and it only adds to the experience rather than simply existing to fill space. So yeah, good on you, Kuro, you're improving. Needless to say, there are things to do in the new update. Free stuff, events with taking pictures and whatnot, just the usual event stuff. But what about the other quests, puzzles, new echoes, and boss fights? For puzzles that use the new echoes, it's a bit jank, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. I like it, and I feel like we need more of this kind of thing. For world quests, I still don't care. And I don't think they'll ever make me care about the world quests unless it's the green exploration world quests. Sure, there's that Horde Tortoise one, but that's all I can remember. Besides that, it's not that interesting if I'm being honest. I'm not sure how they can fix that, but I think this one is just a me thing. As for the new echoes, some of these echoes are seemingly fun to capture and use. The best part is when we encounter the new monsters that has some pretty cool movesets that make them look like bosses. That is, until you run into the mini-boss versions of these monsters, which is honestly one of the best experiences in this patch. Not to mention, for the regular mobs, the level scaling feels just right for where we are at in the game. That said, I need to talk about the biggest letdown for me, and that's the Jue boss fight. This is probably the hottest take in this video, but I really felt that the fight is pretty whatever. Here's the thing, initially I got some Monster Hunter vibes out of this fight, and the spectacle is really cool. However, that's all it ever was, a spectacle. The fight was honestly easy, but it shared some problematic characteristics with some of the more annoying fights from Monster Hunter. Like, Jue flies too much, and it's a time waster. The lock-on is a terrible idea against this boss, but if you play games of a similar nature, you should know by now that locking onto a ginormous monster is a bad idea. But overall, the fight is kind of boring. Like, this is supposed to be a sentinel. It was hyped up to be really powerful, but instead it's just a flying punching bag. But hey, it's still better than that stupid whale fight in Genshin. Though, that's not the bar we should be looking to surpass. Oh yeah, as for the music, it's okay. I am still getting some Monster Hunter vibes from this, but I feel like something is missing. You know what? Let's try this. I'll just layer a PGR soundtrack over this fight, then it'll be better. But there's one other boss I want to talk about, the hologram of the Crownless. Now, when 1.0 first came out, I was surprised to find out that the Crownless did not get a hologram. Well, now we have it, and you know what? We finally have it in its original martial arts form glory. Much more oppressive and so much more violent, and I like it a lot. So as much as I was let down by Jue, the Crownless really saved it for me, even though I'm sure we all knew we were due for a Crownless hologram. As I mentioned earlier, 1.1, despite being a small update and being really good, put into perspective how many steps down the 1.0 experience was. The story in 1.1 made 1.0 look like an incoherent mess that led up to a climax that it definitely didn't deserve. The tone, the design, the content surrounding 1.1 really shows what Wuthering Waves will be in the future, and makes it all the more confusing as to think about what 1.0 was supposed to be in the first place. It's like a totally different game. I hope they continue what they are doing in 1.1 for further patches. I want to see new locations where they have its own messed up aspect that we need to fix and the mechanics that really reflects how messed up things are. If I had a criticism about this patch, it would be that I was a bit let down that the whole time situation was completely fixed, and so the region's unique time problem was watered down to only puzzle mechanics. I really like looking at how the clouds sped up and how the birds were frozen in time. It really adds to the dire feel of the region, but at the same time kind of takes away the whole point of the story, which was to fix this issue. Regardless, I hope to see them be a bit more creative in new regions and show us how messed up it could be, because that's what intrigues me. What 1.1 should tell us is that Wuthering Waves will definitely be fine moving forward, and it will have a bright future ahead. But what it should also tell us is that the stain that is 1.0 needs to be fixed, because as much as I thought 1.1 would wipe away the transgressions that I had in 1.0, it honestly made it worse. I don't want new players to experience that mess just to get to the good bit. That's just bad game design, and no one should ever subscribe to that belief. I hope Kuro does something about this, because much like PGR, the early parts of the story being bad will stay with the game as long as it doesn't get fixed. But don't get me wrong, I still like Wuthering Waves, and I like what they're cooking, but it's hard to ignore the stuff that's undercooked. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for 1.1. That said, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Since we're at the end of the video, it's time to talk about Jinshi. So the banner is up now. How did I do? Well, you see, I got Jinshi in 30 rolls, and these rolls are the free rolls we got from the Kuro mail. So it's practically free. Because of that, I decided to get her weapon and 2 more copies of her. And I got them real early, so now my Jinshi is pretty cracked, and I'm happy. Just wanted to brag about that. Oh, one more thing. That half anniversary stream for PGR was so good, my wallet is definitely in danger. But to me, the biggest standout is the fact that there's an open world section where it appears you can walk around Babylonia. Yup, Wuthering Waves is dead, and PGR is the real killer, everyone. I mean, look, you can hold hands.